Good morning, all. I hope that you're able to hear me. So my name is Philippe Rondel. I'm senior AC in Orca Security. I'm based in Paris. And today we will have few steps in this presentation. The first one will be to present quickly the company, so Orca Security. Then we will have a view altogether on the findings regarding the report, the 2022 reports of the security states of the cloud. And then we will see in details how Orca Security could help you to answer the security challenge in the public cloud environments. So first, I will start by a few slides about the company. So we will just have a view on who is Orca Security. So Orca Security was founded in 2019, so by different people from mainly Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Fastly. This is where the people are coming from. A lot of investors followed us, so mainly Capital G, so the arm part of Google, but also Splunk, Iconic, Temasek, few of them. They invested more than 630 million, so quite a very important number for a company with less than 3 years at a time. And we are around 400 employees, and half of them are in R&Ds. We won in the past years many different kind of awards, and we are very proud also to have been announced last week as the AWS Security Partner of the Year, a global security partner among 1,200 different other partners, so very proud of it. Just to mention a few of our customers, we have different kind of customers, people moving from a data center to the cloud, but also a very cloud native solutions, native enterprise. We can mention different companies like Unity, Robinhood, Fiverr, Wix, or Lemonades in the cloud native space, but we have also other companies like Raiffeisen Bank, NCR, and the most important is SAP. This is a huge cloud environment we are securing with our solution. So now the idea is to have a view on the 2022 State of Public Cloud Security Report and to understand the different challenges in the environment. So we won't have time to read everything on the reports, and I will send you the details to download this report. But we will have a view on a few findings to understand the challenges. So just to mention that this report has been created by the Orca Research Board, a very important team, very skilled team, and they discovered in the first 6 months of the years at least 5 very critical vulnerabilities on different cloud providers. Just to mention that they are working on different aspects. They are working to secure your part of the responsibility in the cloud, but they're also working to help the cloud providers to secure their part because it's a shared responsibility. And just to mention that the report has been created with data collected from January to July, so the first semester. And the idea was to analyze the billions of different assets we were able to analyze in that time with our platform, and to mention few elements. So just to start with vulnerabilities, because vulnerabilities is a key aspect and most of the time is not well-known address in the cloud environment. And we will see that the cloud native solution most of the time are not taking care of it, or not as expected. So surprisingly, we discovered that 10% of the organization have vulnerability that were disclosed more than 10 years ago, which is very, very crazy. The number for me was expected to be lower than that for sure, because 10 years ago is a long time, especially in our space. What is also interesting is we found that compute assets, so the different compute assets, it could be virtual machine, containers, but also their images, have at no less than 50 non-vulnerability in 1 year. So it's huge number, and it's very important to take care of it, to understand that you cannot run on every kind of vulnerability. You need to choose the specific vulnerability you need to solve as soon as possible, and you need to also understand which one need to be addressed by a patch management cycle. But you know also that even if you patch a critical vulnerability, you're pretty sure that a new one will appear very, very soon. And most of the time, the idea is also to be able to address lateral movement, because you know that every time a new vulnerability in front of internet, for example, will appear. Just to mention also that vulnerabilities are the most important way for a hacker to enter your environment. This is the most common initial attack vector for 78% of the time. So of course you have also a weak password, something like this, but 78% of the time, the vulnerability is the way to enter and to have an initial access in your cloud environment. Then we will have a view on the neglected assets. So this is the follow-up of the vulnerability, because neglected assets in our definition means you have asset with an operating system, for example, that already reached the end of support, or you have a system that has not been patched for the last 180 days. So we could think that in the cloud environment, very dynamic one, these things would never happen. The idea is to update your environment every, it depends, every weeks, every day, every hours. For few of you, it's more a question of minutes. But the reality is we always found neglected assets in the environment. And this is also quite important vector of initial access. Most of the time, in 90% of the time, this is a neglected asset that creates the initial access in your cloud environment. So we have an average of 11% of the assets which are considered neglected, which is very high in general. And we found also that 10% of the organization have more than 30% of their workload in a neglected state. So for sure, in those environments, they are very at high risk. Then we will move to the virtual machine and containers, so the main workloads in today's, and we will see also the serverless elements, but in most of the environments, still virtual machine and containers are the most important one. We are able to find different elements, but just to mention one or two, 33% have at least one internet-facing EC2 instance that have full access to S3. This is the common cases for a quarter of the virtual machine on AWS to have a full access on S3. So it means that immediately, if this asset is compromised, the hacker will have a full access on the S3 bucket. And clearly, this is not what you expect. And especially for assets in front of internet, they should have very limited access to storage environments. We also view that 71% of GCE, so the virtual machine on Google Cloud, use the default service account. So it will help the hacker to move laterally very easily. And clearly, this is not a best practice. Regarding the containers, a lot of things could be mentioned. 60% of them are in neglected state. So it means that it's more important than the virtual machine, probably due to the fact that the operating system are moving faster, clearly, but it's not the same, not only the only things. And just to mention that 84% of the organization have at least one containers with a critical open SSL infinite loop. So most of the time, because it's not considered as something that will help the hacker to enter the environment because it's a DOS, it's not patched. I think that is the issue. But most of those environments need the SSL. It's vital for the application, and it means it's very easy for hacker to disrupt your application. Then we are moving to the Kubernetes and serverless. So Kubernetes, which is most of the time the way to organize your containers. Few elements also. The main one clearly is that 70% of the organization have at least a Kubernetes API server publicly accessible. All the different cloud providers allow you to have public accessible API or private API. Use a private API. It's clearly a backdoor if you allow internet connection from anywhere, and clearly don't do that, but it's a common practice. And also, just to mention that 62% of containers are being orchestrated by an outdated version of Kubernetes. So we saw a few customers that are focused to update the containers itself, but not the orchestrators and the way to manage the different workloads. And at the end, it could be a failure in the organization and in the infrastructure. Regarding serverless function, lambdas or Azure function or others, it's often the case that they use outdated runtimes. The case for 78% in AWS and Google Clouds, and it's a key also to follow the time life, not only of your code, but also the runtime that support your serverless function. So that's mainly it for today. But I encourage you to have a look on the full report. You will have a lot of detail on what we are able to find on the hundreds of organizations and billions of assets. So it's probably something similar in your organization or in the organization that you will work with. So just have a look on it. You have here the URL or the QR code to access this report, and it provides you very interesting findings. And we will see now, are we able to address these security challenges in the public cloud. So just to mention that our funders, so in 2019, when they funded the Orca Security, they discovered that the public cloud security had many challenges, but mainly two. And the first one was the fact that a lot of security in the cloud were based on the agents. So agents, this is a technology developed in the past when all the computers were on the data center or in front of you, and you don't have so many different instances, and you manage it manually. So it was quite fine. But now in the cloud environments, it doesn't fit the cloud philosophy. It's very difficult to deploy. It creates friction with DevOps because it will take resources. You need to open a network connection. You need to access internet. You need to open network connection to the management. At the end, you never had a full coverage, and you spend more time to try to have a good coverage than to understand the security findings. So clearly, this is not the good solution. And the second problem is linked to the alert overload. Because I mentioned agent, but I should mention agents, a lot of agents. One agent for the compliant, one agent for the anti-malware, one agent for the EDR, etc., etc. You have a lot of agents, a lot of solutions. Sometimes you have also additional scanners, you have also CSPM solution, etc. But at the end, you have a lot of different siloed solutions that try to produce their findings. And of course, they try to say that they have the more important findings. So and of course, they don't want to miss something. So they send a lot of different logs considered as alerts. And each solution try to say that I have the most important one. So at the end, the security guys receive 10,000 alerts per day and do nothing. So this is clearly not the solution. So our funders invented a technology called the side scanning. This technology is patented now, and it's mixed different kind of sources. The first one is to gather the information of assets directly with the API of the different cloud providers, AWS, Azure, GCP, Ali Cloud, and soon Oracle Cloud. So this is what the traditional CSPM are doing. But most of them are completely blind when we are talking about workloads, and all the smart things are in the workloads. So it could be virtual machine, it could be containers, serverless function, but also storage is very interesting in terms of data, because what you're trying to secure most of the time is data. So traditional CSPM is blind. Most of the time they try to obtain more information, and guess what? They're installed agents. And we try to do it differently. So the idea was to use cloud native solutions. And one of the cloud native solution is snapshots. All the cloud providers are providing snapshots. Snapshot was designed at the origin to provide backups and restore your environments. And here, the idea is to do a snapshot every day, but with a specific view. Those snapshots then are analyzed by a side scanner. The side scanner are specific virtual machine where we plug the snapshot like an external hard drive. So we're able to analyze the snapshot, for example, the snapshot of a virtual machine completely alongside the production. We're able to detect the operating system, all the packages installed, if you have malware on it, what kind of other data do you have, personal information, things like this, what the configuration, do you have weak password, a lot of things like this. Most of the time, virtual machine analysis is 10 minutes. And of course, if you have containers running on that virtual machine, if it's a node of a Kubernetes cluster, for example, we will analyze all the containers running on that virtual machine, but we are also able to analyze storage account like S3, Blob, or whatever. So we have the ability by default every 24 hours, but we can change this parameter. But we have these capabilities to analyze in depth your cloud environment. So not only the envelope with the infrastructure, but to go inside and to analyze everything in your cloud environment and to link all the information. So the four principles that help us to develop this platform, what we call the 4 Cs. The first one was coverage. The idea is to be able to cover everything from the onboarding without installing anything, to cover everything. So cover the different assets, cover the different cloud environments. It's a multi-cloud environment, to be able to have 100% coverage on the workloads and from day one. And then we can start to work on it. The second C is comprehensive. It's a shame to only focus on one risk, one security issue in your environment, if we have such vision in your environment. So you will see that we are covering a lot of different risks, not only the misconfiguration, classical one, but the vulnerabilities, the patch management, the discovered of attack paths, etc. We will see all these capabilities in our environment. The third C is for context, where we understand that if we want to prioritize the alert, of course, none of the alert have different level by themselves, but even for the same alert, for example, a vulnerability, the same vulnerability, log4j, it's 1 year birthday for log4j. The vulnerability on an asset in front of internet, which hosts PII, is not at all the same that the same vulnerability on another asset inside the network, stopped and without PII. Of course, it's not at all the same. And in terms of prioritization, it could only be based on the context. And thanks to the knowledge, the full knowledge we have, we can address this and prioritize the alert. And the last C is for consumable, because it's a cloud solution. So it could be addressed with different automation tools. So everything could be done by API and not only through the web UI, but also the outputs need to be consumable. It means that we need to send the right information to the right people through their classical tool, and not for them to have different kind of people accessing the platform. We will work with different people in terms of security. It could be compliance, vulnerability, CISO, in terms of different other people in the company. It could be DevOps. So they have different kind of tools. Some will use notification tool like Slack, PagerDuty, GCP, PubSub, Teams, or whatever. And the DevOps will mainly use Jira tickets for their change. So we need to address those and have a direct integration with those tools to be able to send the right information to them. So before moving to the demo parts, I just want to mention that as I already said today, we collect information in different ways, mainly through the control plane of the cloud providers. So it could be AWS, GCP, Azure, Ali Cloud, as I mentioned, but also Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is the control plane on top of the cloud providers. We're collecting information. We're collecting information of the workloads, the storage, thanks to the side scanning technology. So on VMs, on containers, on storage, etc. We're collecting logs, logs at different levels, logs of the cloud providers, but logs on the system and others. We will see that also we have the ability to also analyze a buildings environment on the CI/CD. What is important, sorry, it's we are collecting information at different level, but we are unified it in our data model. So everything is in the same data model, everything is linked all together. So we can graph everything, we can have a view and easily understand the software running and listening on a specific port and analyzing also the network below this asset and understand if the same port is open, etc., etc. Everything is linked and is not coming from different acquisition of different products, trying to address this in the same UI, but not in the same unified data model. And after that, it's very easy to address different security outcomes, like, of course, the asset inventory, the ability to prioritize alerts, to identify risk at identity level, to validate the compliance of the cloud, to remediate, to do some analysis of the log, to do cloud detection and response, etc., etc. Just a few examples in the list. So I will now move to the demo. I hope that you're able to see my screen in 1 second. Oh, yeah, I think so. So I just want to show you the platform, so the Orca Security platform. Oops. So just to start by the onboarding, as I mentioned, we are not working with the agents, so we don't have to install anything. We just have to connect your cloud environment to the Orca Security platform, what we call the onboarding. It's so simple. Just to give you an example here, with AWS, you just have to log to your AWS account to run a CloudFormation template that will create an IAM role and a policy. You just have to report the ARN of this role, and that's it. You click connect. So in less than 2 minutes, you have on board an AWS account. And of course, you can do it also at the organization level. So it will be, you will have an additional step, but in one operation, you will be able to onboard all the accounts below the organization today and in the future. So you will be able to analyze and to be sure to analyze all your cloud environments very easily. Of course, we can also onboard through APIs, through Terraform, but this is very easy way to onboard your cloud environment. After that, when you're onboard your environment, it will start to collect the information with the cloud providers. In few minutes, you will see the first asset coming in the platform, and in less than 24 hours, you will have the full visibility in depth in your cloud environments. So here in my demo, I have a multi-cloud environment. We have a AWS account, GCP project, Azure subscription, Oracle, a lot of things like this. I can see easily all the assets in the inventory. So I have all the different kind of asset, image, Kubernetes, monitoring, network, users, VMs, etc. I'm mentioning a lot virtual machine. It's not because we're only focused on virtual machine. This is because this is the asset that the different cloud provider have less information, except the hardware, the virtual hardware that support it, and etc. Inside the asset itself, they have less information, and this is very interesting to complete what they're able to see. Here, I will look. We will have a deeper look on the virtual machine, a specific one called Web Nginx. When I'm clicking on it, I have a view on the most important alert specific to that virtual machine, but we will go on that a little bit later. Just to mention that one of the first information we have in the platform is the exposure of that asset. So here we can see that even if that virtual machine won't have any public IPs, it could be private, we don't care. I don't know if it has public or private, but we know that all the traffic could go through Cloudflare, so external service, then to an external load balancer in my cloud environment, but can reach my virtual machine on port 80. So it means that any IP address on the internet could reach my virtual machine, my asset here. So it's exposed clearly to internet. So it's calculated with the different elements we analyze in the cloud environments. We also have a view on what could be compromised if that one would be compromised by a hacker. We have here some network connection. So on port 22 to reach Ubuntu, on port 22 and 80 to reach DevOps virtual machine. But more important here, we have an SSH key mentioned. So it means that we have the private SSH key stored unsecurely on that operating system, and the public one is on Jenkins 01 PRD here. So if an hacker would have the hands on the web nginx, he will have immediately access to Jenkins thanks to the key let by the DevOps on those virtual machines. We can have here a view on the different permission allowed to that asset. So clearly we can see that asset have an access to a specific bucket. We can see the service available in terms of permission, but we can see easily also which service is not used. So we can easily clear some elements. We have a view on the login history. We can validate that only the relevant users have access to it and don't have some brute force tentative, for example. We have a view on all the packages installed on that virtual machine. So it's grouped by categories. We have all the specific version, and we stored all that information. You can collect it also through API if you want to put it in your asset management tool. But immediately when we have a 0-day vulnerability, we can know immediately which asset has the exact vulnerable software installed on it. We have a view on the databases instance in that virtual machine. We have a view on security logs because we can find a lot of things on the security logs. We can do some file integrity, etc. So it means that when sensitive files or directory are modified, we can send an alert. A lot of information like this. You can play with this database of information very, very easily. We have here a query builder that helps you to query this database. So you can type free text, for example. I'm typing just Jenkins, and it will propose different kind of legal queries. So this one seems interesting. I will query all the compute services that run Jenkins. And here in my environment, I just have a virtual machine, an EC2 instance with that specific things. But I can use also the query language called Sonar. And with Sonar, I can query all the virtual machine. It could be in EC2 instances, Azure VM, GCE, whatever. I can ask all the virtual machine with specific things like the fact to host personal information and the fact to be in front of internet. So two very risk factors for my environment. And with that simple query, I can list easily all the virtual machine that combine those risks. And we can see easily that this Windows server has a lot of alerts and need to be addressed very, very soon. just to mention that in our catalogs, we have different example of query, and we have different category. One of them is not focused on security, it's a cost optimization. This is something that a lot of customer is very happy with because we can discover some elements. So it could be neglected asset left there, but it could be disk unattached, it could be too many snapshots, etc. And at the end, it helped to decrease the cost of the cloud environment. But you can also have some very interesting query. This one is focused on blind spots. The idea is because we have with the agentless solution 100% coverage capabilities. The idea is to list here where the runtime protection, here an EDR, the EDR of CrowdStrike, is not running as expected. So we have the list of virtual machine where the CrowdStrike service, so it could be, they have two names, so it's just a list, but where this service is not running because not installed, because stopped, because crash, whatever, but you don't have the right protection or the protection expected on that environment. Of course, with all the knowledge we collected on all the cloud environments, we can do compliance not only at the infrastructure level, like most of the CSPM are doing, but with all the knowledge also of the workload, storage, etc. So we have more than 60 different framework that we're providing from scratch. So it could be Orca best practices, but it could be benchmark like CIS in different cloud environments. It could be the benchmark of the different cloud providers. It could be norm or regulation, NIST, PCI, GDPR, ISO, and IPA in certain environments. We have benchmark also for specific operating systems, specific application. SOC 2 is also something that very well used, because if you're providing a SaaS solution, most of the time you want to be compliant with SOC 2 and ISO 27001, and it's very painful in terms of audits. So if you have a tool to help you day after day to comply with this regulation or compliancy, and also help you to provide all the proof to the auditors, it's of course it helps a lot. So we can see here easily the result of those different compliance. Some of them have only few validation. Here we can see 52, 60, etc. But clearly for NIST, for example, it's more 2,700 different validations. So it could be huge elements, and we will validate all the different assets with those validation. And of course, you cannot do it manually. And the only way to do it is to have a tool like this to be able to validate those things. But compliance is not all to help to decrease the attack surface in your cloud environment. And this is the main objective of the platform, is to decrease the attack surface, to identify all risk, and to help you day after day to work on it and to decrease the attack surface. So just to mention, we're working also on malware. We have a full heuristic engine able to detect malware on your workloads, on your storage. We're working on the data protection. It could be the infrastructure or some elements, technical data too much exposed. We're working on vulnerabilities. Just to mention here that we have in that widget the most trendy vulnerability, and you can see easily your exposure. So you can imagine that 1 year ago, our customers were very, very happy when Log4j was released, the vulnerability on Log4j was released, to know exactly where they have the issue. Here it's 100% safe. We can see here on that vulnerability on Microsoft Windows that we have 8 alerts, and we can drill down and have a view. And as I mentioned before, thanks to the context, the same CVE with the same CVSS score are not rated at the same alert level. We have 4 at imminent compromise and 4 at informational. It means 4 has been increased due to the fact that probably they are in front of internet, and 4 has been decreased because they are not in front of internet, but because also they are probably virtual machines stopped. So it means that they cannot be compromised right now. So it's not even an alert, it's just informational. So I started to mention the different other risks that we are covering. It could be authentication at the CSP level, but authentication at the workload level to discover the weak password, for example, on your virtual machine, on your containers. We're discovering also personal information. It could be on flat files, it could be on databases also. We're starting these capabilities right now. So it's very interesting because it identified all your personal information in your cloud environment, and it helped a lot to put the other alerts in context. We have so many different risks that we are covering, but I would like first to show you how we are able to gather all those information and to add some other added value. This capabilities, this feature is called Attack Pass. Attack Pass is focused on the most critical asset in your environment, what we call the cron jewel. The cron jewel are some assets that you can mark because you know that you have personal information or a contract or something like this. But we are also marking automatically some element here. A storage account with personal information, a privilege account will be automatically marked. And with that feature, we will try to find a path that the hacker could use starting from internet to access those very critical assets. So this path is rated 94 up to 100, so it's very high score. And because it can start from the internet, we have the first element in our chain, which is the Web Nginx, the virtual machine I showed you before. Web Nginx is in front of internet, we already know that. But we can add here the information that it has different vulnerabilities, or at least, and one is a remote code, could provide remote code execution. So well exploited, the hacker will have the hand on the virtual machine here. We already saw that we have an SSH private key not stored securely on the Web Nginx. And we saw also that the network connection between Web Nginx and Jenkins 01 PRD is possible. So clearly, the hacker will easily move laterally in terms of Mitre tactics to the Jenkins 01 PRD. Jenkins is not part of the cron jewel, but has the ability in the AWS environment to assume a role, permit S3 for ACME, and this role will provide to that EC2 instance the access to the S3 bucket here that hosts the personal information. So we have the full chain that the hacker could use to access the information, and you have all the remediation possible. Of course, to patch the vulnerability in front of the internet is critical because you don't want also to let the hacker have access to Web Nginx, but perhaps it will take time to validate the new software and to store the key securely, perhaps will be quicker and will help also in long term to don't have these chains anymore, because a new vulnerability could appear. As we mentioned before, an asset, a workload will have more than 50 vulnerability per year. So even if this one will be patched, perhaps in 1 week, in 2 weeks, another will appear. So it's important also to make disappear this lateral movement, and perhaps the fact also to assume this role, this very permissive role. Just a few minutes, so I want to finish with just a few things. We have the ability also to work on logs, so on cloud detection and response, to analyze statically, but also with behavioral engines, some anomalies in your cloud environments. We have the ability to analyze your exposure in terms of web and API, because this is the idea of the cloud, is to expose to customers, users, some applications. And the idea here is to analyze those applications, the authentication, the encryption, what kind of data they are serving, etc., etc. And last but not least, we have the ability to analyze not only running environments, but environment you're building in the CI/CD. So we have the ability to analyze infrastructure as a code. We have the ability to analyze containers images and source code. And the idea is to be able to detect vulnerabilities, to detect sensitive information on it, and to decide if you can move forward and create those environments that will still be analyzed by the platform, of course, but easily you can define the policy. It will be analyzed in different environments, CI/CDs, laptop of the DevOps, whatever you want, and you will have all the results in the scan logs here. And we will also share the information between the building environment and the running environments. This is very interesting to have connection between both. And that's it. I hope that you have most of the information you wanted, but if it's not the case, don't hesitate to contact us, and it will be a pleasure to do a demo or to do this in your cloud environment, because as I mentioned, the onboarding is simple. You have nothing to install, no impact on production. So it's very, very easy to do a POC in your production environment. So thank you, and see you soon.